Hey guys, it's Quana back again with another This Is Us recap and review. I am so sorry that this one has been late. I have been battling the sinus infection from Hades this week, and so while I did catch season 6 episode 7 on its regularly scheduled night, I just was not up to recording and pretty much has been just like a avalanche of coughing and congestion going on over here. And so I apologize for getting this to you guys so late, but hopefully you guys have had a chance to watch the episode because I am going to be talking about so much from this episode and previous episodes. So spoilers ahead. If you haven't had a chance to watch, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and come back later and watch it. But if you have, go ahead and strap on your seatbelts because we are going to dig in to season 6, episode 7, entitled Taboo. I will be your host for this evening, Quana. Hello. This was one of my favorite episodes this season. I will say by and large, they have been hitting it out of the park with the acting and with the writing, going out with a bang. You know, that's always such, when you've been with the show throughout its entirety, it's always kind of nerve-wracking when you get to the final season because you don't want any of the things that you loved about the show to fall off and to end on a sour note. We don't want any Game of Thrones situations over here. My Game of Thrones fans, you understand what I mean when I say that. And there's already been a lot with this show because we do get the flash forwards that we know is coming that has the potential to drive some fans away. But I will say that I really enjoyed this episode. I am an old school awkward girl, and whenever I see very awkward moments on television, they're so cringy. I usually have to like grab a blanket or a pillow and hide my face and just kind of like squeal while I'm watching it. But it's kind of like watching an accident, right? You can't look away. And that was what this episode gave us. It gave us tons of cannot look away moments. And that's exactly what I wanted. I still don't know where we are in the trajectory of certain relationships for this show. Kate and Toby, I'm looking at you. But I like what this episode did. So let's go ahead and get straight into the recap. It was a fun episode. We are back at Thanksgiving, which was kind of nice because that is a tradition with the Pearsons, is their Thanksgiving based episodes. And we didn't really get one last year because of COVID. And in the words of Beth, the wise sage of the show, the epitaph of the Pearsons will read, "Lovely people cried a lot, traumatic as hell Thanksgivings." And that's all of what this was and all of what this show is. But you know, you're here, you know, you love it. So let's talk about the very first. We kind of get 4 timelines in this episode. We get a very quick snippet. Again, I've been kind of saying all season long that this season was really going to be Rebecca heavy. If you were not aware, they are really trying to get Mandy Moore and Emmy this season. I think pretty much, unless, not to say that something couldn't pay off for Milo with episode 3, the episode where his mother passes away, there is something that possibly could pay off there. But I will say that that wasn't his strongest episode, and I think they really probably know that the ship has sailed with Milo being able to get an Emmy. Sterling already got one, and those are the 3 heavy hitters in terms of acting within this show. Of course, you can always get a guest spot. There's Emmys for guest roles and guest appearances, but in terms of the main cast, I pretty much feel like they know that out of the main cast members, Chrissy and Mandy have gotten nominations before. No, that neither one of them have won, and Mandy is really their best shot at winning a nomination. Sterling has already gotten one for the show, and you know, Milo, this is really not his season. This character is pretty much done. I keep saying they keep trying to find ways to include him into the show so that he can be a part of the primary cast, the principal cast, all the way through. Especially as it pertains to, they just reached their 100 episodes, so that they will be able to hopefully get into syndication, which means they'll get residuals and be able to be played on more channels. But really, it's really those three. It's Milo, it's Sterling, and it's Mandy. And I think that this is the year that they're really putting all of their ducks, all of their eggs behind Mandy, trying to get her a nomination. And she just kind of hit it out the park. So we start with her. We get to see her and her mom making this sugar pie. Her mom gives her a small slither. We get to kind of see a couple of things with this. One, the significance of this pie in this episode, but also the seeds of kind of the problems with around eating that exists within the women in the Pearson family. The then Rebecca Malone figure who's only given this small slither of pie. Her mother doesn't have any of the pie. And that becomes kind of a motif throughout the episode. We then jump into 90s, early 2000s Rebecca post Jack's death, and they're preparing for that Thanksgiving where her new boyfriend is going to be coming by, and she's making the pie with Kate, with a younger Kate. And we've already seen Kate slowly begin to gain weight, and she gives her the spatula to taste the mix, and she's trying to resist tasting it. You know, that small taste maybe cause her to, you know, spiral out of control. And then we get the mentioning of the secret ingredient, which is going to become a theme for the episode. Then we go into present day Thanksgiving, where Kevin is getting on everybody's daggone nose with this guitar. And it's like, Kevin, bless his heart, he is just the most non-observant, non-introspective person on the planet, because Toby has already told him about himself with this guitar, and he still insists on playing it everywhere at any point in time and around everyone. Like, there's a whole outside. You can't go outside, sit on the porch and play the guitar. Isn't that what people do out in the woods anyway? Like, play banjos and guitars on the front porch. And he's playing Anna Begins by Counting Crows. I don't know if you guys picked up on that song. At least that's what I picked up on. And then he starts making a song where he's narrating where everywhere else in the family that his kids are over in Tucson, I think, maybe with Elijah's family. I think that's where he said. And then, no, Nikki is in Tucson with his girlfriend's family. He's narrating where everybody is at, and he's narrating the fact that he is alone. I have a feeling that the guitar playing is maybe going to come up in next week's Kevin-esque episode, so I feel like that's why we're still seeing it. But Toby looks like he wants to just grab that guitar and smash it to smithereens, and I don't blame him. The most important thing we get out of this scene is Toby kind of criticizing Kate for giving the baby a taste of the pie mix as they're making the pie mix. And he's also eating cereal, and Toby says it's sugary cereal, and Kate says, no, it's whole grain. You would know this if you had gone on grocery runs with us. And so we're still seeing that they're still struggling. They haven't found a balance of existing with Toby still going and working away from the family. They're still struggling with this. And, you know, they've both had problems around weight. And while I can see both of their point of view, Kate does not want to begin sowing the seeds in young Jack that he needs to be obsessive toward food. She wants him to have a normal relationship with food. Toby is very fearful that because of their genetic disposition toward overeating and eating the wrong kinds of foods and weight gain, that he needs to start learning healthier decisions now, even at a young age, to not develop taste buds for sweet things. And I get that as a parent. I get that we were really, really careful about not giving our kids sugary things for a very long period of time. They're kids though, and so now that they're in school and they have candy and things like that at school, they know what candy tastes like. I have a feeling that they've even had soda, but we've not given them soda yet. And so I understand where both of them are coming from. It brought me back to some of the earlier seasons where they showed Kate's relationship with food, especially with how indulgent Jack was with her, that he would often take her to go get ice cream to kind of resolve her feelings. And I don't know if Kate ever really fully dealt with that she used food to comfort herself. And that her father really aided in that. I know I'm spending a lot of time in this. We haven't even gotten to the episode yet, but that's just what came to my mind. And I could see the validity in both of their points. then we get to Randall, and the girls are riding to the cabin, and he's talking about wanting the girls to spend time with Rebecca, you know, really wanting to make memories. Side note, I had to look up the type of pie that they were making, the sugar pie, because I had never heard of a sugar pie in my life. And it kind of made me think about like the foods that that Randall has missed out on from the Black community, because he's never had a Black Thanksgiving experience unless he's had times where they've gone to Beth's family, but we've never seen that. As always, Beth is just dropping gems. She is literally the best person in the show. But we do get one mention that I think is going to come up in the next couple of episodes with Randall. And we get a vague mention where he's talking to the girls and saying, hey, stay off social media. Can you please not text Malik, Deja? And Deja's like, Malik is being weird and he's not texting me. So I definitely think that when we get to Randall's episode, we're going to find out what's going on with Malik. And we're going to find, and Deja's going to find out what Randall said to Malik a couple of episodes ago, and it's going to cause some major problems. Mark my words. Okay, I'm saying it here now. All right, so then finally, everyone is together, and Rebecca talks about that she wants to have an important meeting with just her kids and Miguel at the end of the night. And we know that this is probably going to be leading into her making some end-life preparations, and it's going to be a nerve-wracking event. Now, aside from that, we don't really get a whole lot in the current day until we get to that moment. So I'll say that for later, but I will just say a couple of things. Randall driving everybody crazy by like videotaping every single moment. But that's just such a normal thing to do. Like when you know that you have the time to prepare for a loved one's passing, like you want to record all those memories, especially because thinking about this from the perspective of him being an adopted kid, he does not have biological family that his kids will be able to look back on and say, this is my family. And there is probably a fear that he has for his kids that once Rebecca passes, will those same connections exist for his kids with the Pearson family? Like, will they feel as though this is their family? Because as families go on and they dilute, you do lose that core of the family. And I can understand why he feels that fear. And so it makes completely sense. And if you haven't thought about that from that perspective, let me know down below in the comments. Like, now that I've said that, does that make sense to you? Like, why Randall is so obsessive? Also, there was a whole lot of confusion, especially like a couple of people and myself online were having about like the placement of the cabin. Okay, based on the fact that Randall was driving, and also remembering that Kevin was buying tickets for Thanksgiving. So the cabin is somewhere in Pennsylvania, which is really interesting because he's having it built there. And the idea is that Rebecca will be able to be there whenever she gets to her end stages, which definitely leads me to believe that by the time we get to the flash forward, Kevin is pretty much all out of acting. Probably the occasional role that maybe takes him away from here and there, but he's probably pretty much done. That also makes me wonder if Kevin becomes her primary caregiver, but also like with the twins, like are they out there? Because it's a little, the way that they were building the cabin almost made me think that it was in California. But once I looked at it again, the episode again, I was like, oh no, it's definitely in Pennsylvania, which makes sense because I always thought that the original cabin was in Pennsylvania and that they were able to drive there as a family. So that was a little confusion, but I think the cabin definitely is in Pennsylvania, and the new one that he's building is also there. So it's going to be interesting because it must mean that Kevin is making arrangements for leaving acting once that's complete, like once that becomes like the Pearson family compound, so to speak. All right, let's go into, we get another timeline. One of the timelines that we also get is young Rebecca, newly engaged Rebecca with Jack, and they're spending Thanksgiving together with her parents. And we all have met Rebecca's mom, and we know how judgmental she is, and so they are not having an easy time of it. It's nice to see Jack and her dad bond a little bit because they had a whole lot of tension between them. And I don't know if we ever really got that resolved, so to speak, but they seem to be kind of on one accord in this evening, which is just kind of like stay out of the way, keep things at an even temper because the women are going to probably be going at it, especially because here's Rebecca taking the reins of Thanksgiving away from her mother and, facing her mother's criticism. Well, I'm not going to keep you guys in suspense. We find out that her parents are going to be moving. I think they're planning on moving to Connecticut, and that's going to cause, some tension or some distance between them. And Rebecca is actually quite devastated. And they kind of resolve things at the end of the evening. And Rebecca's mom actually tells her the secret ingredient to the sugar pie. So we do know that Rebecca has this secret ingredient. Now, this becomes a key moment later on because we see Kate wanting to know the secret ingredient so that she can write it down. She's writing down all of these recipes, and it's kind of like she's preparing for Rebecca to lose her memory, but she's also just wanting to get them down just in case anything were to happen, which, it's always the person who keeps the memories in their mind of like how that's going to pass down. What if something happens and nobody has written those things down? Who will pass on those things that belong in the family? So she's writing down recipes. We see that. And then we get to Thanksgiving dinner. The most awkward Thanksgiving dinner in the entire history, I think, of the Pearsons. Mainly because of, before we get there, I'm so sorry. Let's go back to college age Big Three, where Rebecca is getting ready for her PTA friend, man friend, to come by for dinner, and also Miguel and his girlfriend who comes by, and they're playing Taboo. It's apparent that Rebecca and Miguel are meant to be together. Like, they get each other almost more than Rebecca and Jack. And, I don't think that Miguel was ever lusting for Rebecca when she was with Jack. I think she was just his friend. Like, he just saw her as a friend, and she's an extension of his best friend, and nobody in the world can get them like they get each other. Well, the kids are definitely noticing the sparks are there, but then so are the significant others, and it is not an easy night. Rebecca and Miguel win Taboo. It is very apparent that they are with the wrong people, but Rebecca gets the tragic news that Miguel is going to be moving to Houston. So now we find out, like, that distance that ended up being between them for so long, where they spent so many years apart before they reconnected on Facebook. It's because he moves to Houston, and she is devastated. Like, she's in her room crying, upset. But we also have a lot else going on. We got Kevin with his drinking. We've got Randall with his worrying over how much weight Kate has gained. Kate wanting to cuss Randall out over worrying about how much weight she's gained. And Beth, as always, just being like the wise sage that she is, trying to keep temperaments cool. We get to just see more and more of their dynamic. And they really haven't changed much from how they were. Like, we could definitely see that they're still caught in so many of these cycles that they have been in. And these are just become their core personality traits. Like, yes, Kevin's not drinking anymore, but the way in which he responds to Kate, which is just to kind of be on her side and not really get into her best and to get into her business, not call her out. It exists there, and of course they have that tension between them because his cheating on Sophie. But I do think it's problematic because we see that show up in the episode with them being in the current timeline, because he immediately jumps to Kate's defense. As his brother, as her brother, he should. But it's kind of disrespectful toward Toby. So Toby, everybody's eating, and Kate is giving little Jack some sweet potato souffle, it looks like. And it's got, like, the marshmallows on top and everything like that. And, he's just like, hey, it's getting late. Can we not, like, give him so much sugary stuff? Like, the potatoes themselves are sweet. You're going to give him the topping too. Like, he's had so much sugary stuff and it's going to be hard for him to go to bed. And Kate just spazzes and is like, are you worried about him being fat? If he says yes, which would be a completely natural fear for a former obese person to have, like, it's still logical, but she shames him for that. And he's like, well, yeah, you and I both had really rough childhoods resolved around our weight, and I just don't want that for him. Kevin goes off, tells him to take off the pilgrim jack hat, which is like the hat of the special person for the evening. Basically, I feel like he just kicked Toby out of the family by saying that. Like, legit just kicked Toby out of the family. At that point, like, that was just so harsh. And I just think neither Toby nor Kate were wrong in that situation. There was just a compromise that needed to happen. So a conversation that needs to happen around how are we going to treat Jack as it pertains to food. Maybe we should talk to a nutritionist. Maybe we should talk to a psychiatrist. We both know that this is an issue we have. Let's kind of come to a place where we can like be resolved on it. And neither one of them were being very mature about it. So that was just a whole hot mess. I wanted to smack Kevin though. That was real wrong. How he gonna tell him to take that hat off? I didn't appreciate it. Eventually they sit down with Rebecca. Rebecca talks to them about her end-of-life plans and how the person that she wants in charge of things is Kate. This makes sense. Randall, although he is a great planner, might be too emotional in doing it. And also, I think he would probably go overboard. Kevin would go overboard as well, but both of them have very specific triggers that could possibly spiral them out of control. She feels as though Kate is her daughter and the one who's closest to. And I think she's making this choice with more of a heart choice than like a wisdom choice, because she doesn't make the choice to pick, like, let's just say Beth. I maybe would pick Beth. And it made me think of the fact that William picked Beth to handle things for him when he died, that it was Beth who he wanted in charge and not necessarily anyone else, because Beth is very level-headed. We also, there was a moment earlier in the show where Kevin kind of gave Miguel some stat about talking about building an additional house, maybe on the outside, like a little guest house or something, for in case they have to have someone else come and stay. And Kevin's just like, oh, you want me to build something for you and your fishing buddies? Like, at this point now, how many years has it been? Like, just cut Miguel some slack. Like, your mom is older. At that point, you're mad at her, your dad's best friend, for being her husband, but did you want her to be alone for the rest of her life? Like that, it doesn't make sense. He's really being a kid about it. Like, Kevin really is the most immature out of all Pearson, the big three. Like, he really truly is. And Miguel basically is like, no, I want to do that because eventually we might need someone full-time to help take care of your mom, and they will need someplace to stay. And he's like, oh, I've got egg on my face. Like, I just am waiting for them to start treating Miguel like he's an important part of the family. That said, I've been saying this all 6 seasons of the show, I really hope that we get a Miguel-centered episode. And I think with him moving to Houston, it would be great to get an episode that shows him in Houston before he reconnects with Rebecca. Like, I know we're getting ready to get the big 3 episodes again, so Kevin, Kate, and Randall, but it'd be really great on the other side of that to get a Miguel-centered. We've gotten Beth-centered, we've gotten Toby. We've never gotten a Miguel-centered episode. And it would be really nice to get that. I feel like he's earned it. He deserves it. And the actor who plays Miguel is just amazing. So at the end of the show, we're kind of at a standstill where we know that things are really coming to a head with Kate and Toby. Yes, we're on episode 7. We still have quite a few episodes to go. I think we're somewhere around 11 episodes left. I just don't see where they're going to get us to a place where we can see Kate with the principal. I always forget his name. I'm not going to remember his name, guys. It'll be the last episode before I get his name right, because I don't like him. And I just really feel like I kind of wish that where the show had gone with Kate and Toby was in a direction where maybe they were separated, but maybe there's a chance for reconciliation. Like the idea of just giving her this new guy. And I don't believe that. And I think that they're trying to make Kate to seem like she's the more mature one out of her and Toby. And I just don't think that's so. I think that neither one of them is being very mature with this situation, because there are several truths that have to be hashed out with both of them. But that episode is coming. I'm telling you what, I think episode 9 is going to be heavy. I think next week's gonna be a little lighthearted in comparison. I think the episode 9 with Kate is gonna be where you're gonna gird your loins. I'm telling you now. So it was a really great episode. A lot of good moments. A lot of just getting a chance to those last moments with like the Pearsons and spending this last Thanksgiving with them. It's going to be tumultuous, but in the words of Beth, I swear every year with this family, we go through it. So that is my recap. It was a great episode though, guys. If you haven't had a chance to see it and you just watch my recap, watch the episode for yourself. It was so good. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite moment of the night was. And also, what's your favorite Thanksgiving pie? Mine is sweet potato. So let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you guys in just a few days with episode 8. Until then, toodles.